Yes, sir.
What tax would you support?
I think that the property tax is the most appropriate tax for county government. But there are some of these projects that the group I represent would not support. I mean, some of these things I do, for example, the baseball museum. And, and the other thing is, sometimes we have to prioritize. But the most transparent tax is the property tax. Yes, ma'am.
How would you recommend funding a history museum for Durham that I think you're poking inappropriate derision at a baseball museum when there are two other museum activities that are of higher consequence in this particular plan? Durham is one of the few cities in the Piedmont that does not have a history museum, and its history is unique and needs to be preserved within buildings as well as without walls.
That's a fair question. Museums have been built with private funds at times. They can be built with admission charges. They can be, there's a museum, there's a Museum of Life and Science here, and we funded that without the meals tax. There are places that have built museums without a meals tax. If it is, but choices have to be made. And I'm not, against that project in itself. I'm not against a baseball museum. I just don't know that taxpayers ought to be coerced when they do the dastardly deed of buying cupcakes at the grocery store to pay for a baseball museum. Yes, sir.
I certainly would not be a happy camper if I thought that the Raleigh voters were being coerced, but I still don't think it would give me enough incentive to even drive across the county line. And I wonder what your interest in Durham is.
My interest in Durham is with the taxpayers that have to pay the bill. And I have members here that are members of Americans for Prosperity, and we work with some groups up here. So, that's my interest, is of the protecting the taxpayer. Yes, sir.
Your organization in other states has advocated for a change from progressive income taxes to flat rate income taxes, which is a relatively regressive taxing approach. Why concern about regressivity over this tax, if not in other things that Americans for Prosperity has advocated for?
I am not, and I'd have to look that up, I am not aware that we have moved, to a different type of tax structure. One of the more basic tenets that that I am most familiar with advocating is a taxpayer bill of rights that is spending limits that fix how much government you spend, in other words, how much government spends correlated to the population and the increases in inflation and population. If you wanted to spend more than that, you had to go to the voters. That's, really all taxing mechanisms are just a way to raise revenue. There's a spending component on the other side that I'm more familiar with. But I would be hesitant to talk too much about that because I feel some responsibility to as I represent the Durham citizens against the meals tax, to stick sort of to the things that we agree on, which we don't, some of the things we may not agree on, other things we just are against the tax. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that one of the reasons that this tax is unfair is that it taxes a necessity. Is there a tax option that we have that would not tax a necessity?
Well, again, property taxes, again, are deductible off your federal income tax. But, I think...
This tax isn't?
What?
This tax wouldn't be?
I don't believe so.
It is. It's deductible.
If you can, let's find most people that deduct off, look at it and percentage-wise, most people will not do that. The overwhelming amount of people are not going to deduct that because you have to pick one or the other, I believe, on your state tax. But back to your answer, I think that, look, it is okay that we may not agree here. But I am, fundamentally opposed to a new tax on food. And with everything else, that's what we come back to. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think if I'm hearing you right, you're protecting the rights of the least people that can afford to pay this extra tax. Do I have you right?
I think that's part of it. I think it's also people, I also think that people who can afford it don't necessarily need to be coerced to do this either.
Right, but it's probably the least, I don't know what the answer would be. It's going to be, what, 1 cent on the dollar more?
Yeah, let me speak to that, and that's perfectly fine to disagree with me. All taxes are solved that way. They never come to you and say, listen, y'all got to double property taxes, and we're just going to do it right now. That isn't how you get to over 50% of your income going to taxes. Just a little bit, 1% here, nickel here. I mean, to be honest about it, it's just like the commercials on television. Say 50 cents a day, you do this, 50 cents a day. That's how you get to 50%, over 50%, 50% in your income going to taxes. It's 1% here. Yes, ma'am.
You just lost my vote.
Okay. Okay.
Just flat out, I was strongly against the tax.
Okay.
Because I thought it was taxing, there's way too many other things. You just lost my vote, thank you.
Okay. Because.
You're saying that it's extracting stuff from taxpayers? Well, most of the taxpayers are voters, and most of them make a choice either on the things they vote for, or on the commissioners and the county and the city council people they choose. And your arguments are just, you just lost a vote, just for your information.
Okay.
I would also add that I believe these projects go through a citizen vetting process as well. So the citizens have looked at a list of worthy projects and selected these projects as part of that. Does that affect your argument that the citizens themselves have actually chosen this?
I mean,
not voting to tax them?
well, I mean, they're also going to choose at the ballot box on Tuesday whether they implement the tax. And I'm making the argument that they should. I mean, certainly, I mean, no question, we always encourage citizen involvement in government. I mean, that is a great thing. I mean,
I think we have time for a couple more questions.
and listen, I'll be glad to stay as long as you need me. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I believe it was him and then, yes, sir.
Sir, you mentioned wanting to repeal the tax in Wake County. My understanding is Wake County and Mecklenburg are our two largest counties, and in both counties, the tax was imposed without a referendum. Have you done any polling to find out were people there really upset that they had tax imposed on them without a referendum, and are people there willing to repeal it?
We have not polled them. And you are correct that all the places that have this tax, to my knowledge, and we researched it and we had a little question, but to my knowledge, all the places that have had it via referendum have gone down. All the places that had the authority to enact it through their commissioners or their town board, that's how they got it.
But was there a groundswell of any popular support to repeal it after?
It's
it was imposed without a
it's been
referendum?
15 years, and I just don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry, I can't answer that. Yes, sir.
I take your point to heart about being able to pick and choose certain projects within who's going to get funded and who isn't. But I'm going back and looking as here in front of the neighborhood council. I mean, a lot of things on here that we're really in favor of. Community cleanups, some of the cultural amenities, not just neighborhoods. We also have children in our home, and it's just not about
I got
providing
kids too.
museums.
Oh, I understand that.
It's giving them educational opportunities. We just had the ice or a problem in one of our schools. They've got someplace else to go to, and then, the Museum of Life and Science is great, but having other venues for our kids to do day trips to go to in Durham creates a lot of benefit to us as taxpayers. That isn't.
I mean, you want them going to the baseball museum?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I'd love to be able to see them go to that instead of a gang culture concert.
Okay.
And providing more opportunities for those, our children in the future, is something that, like I said, maybe I might not be able to go to every single one of these, but I can pick and choose several of them as a community person that I can support.
I'd love to let this nice lady ask a question.
You made the point that the 1 cent tax is a little by little by little by little increasing. I want to let you know that the delay of these cultural amenities that our community is in favor of is similar. And so we have an equal argument to say, let's stop the delay.
Okay.
All right, well, I want to thank Mr. Tier and Mr. Woodhouse for coming.